Hello everybody and welcome to my first attempt at a live streaming, and today I would like to show you how to implement a new feature into UNO platform, and the idea of it came from this Stack Overflow question which I discovered today, which asks about implementing full screen mode into UNO platform and if that's supported yet. Actually, these APIs, try enter full screen mode and exit full screen mode, are available on iOS and Android in UNO platform today. You can see here and here. But unfortunately, they are not implemented on WebAssembly. And that's something I would like to attempt to do in this live stream, as it should be a very simple thing to do, as there are APIs for full screen in JS, and if I do request, so there is a request full screen and exit full screen method, which should easily allow us to do exactly that. So the first thing I usually do when developing new feature into UNO platform is to open the UNO platform solution in Windows mode, targeting UWP, and then go here into the solution and add a new sample to the samples app, which is basically the sync of all different samples for UNO platform, and it showcases how each of the controls and features and APIs works, and actually allows the developers to confirm that things are working properly. So this feature is located in Windows UI View Management. So I will add a new user control here, which will represent this feature, and I will call it full screen mode tests. And this simple sample control will just be a stack panel with two buttons. Button, which one will be enter full screen, and the other one will be exit full screen. And I will just do click handler to both of them. Enter full screen click, and the same thing for the other one, and it's gonna be exit full screen click. And when I go to the, I'll try to go to the definition. That's not actually working. There's a bug in Visual Studio currently, so I'll go to the code behind and implement it myself. So let's do full screen click. So check center and rotate and arcs, and now E, and the same thing for exit full screen click. And here we just call the classic Windows UWP API. So we get the current view for application view and call the try enter full screen mode API. And for the exit, we have exit full screen mode. So it's fairly simple. It just calls the UWP API. And when I launch this, it will not actually work yet, as there is not the specific UNO sample attribute that's added to user controls in samples. So I will import this and call this, for example, full screen mode, and add some description. So I will call it showcases entering and exiting full screen mode. So that should now work, and when this builds, it should show us the UNO platform samples application and allow us to test the API. So this is the first step usually, that you can write the sample, test how the APIs work in UWP, and then you start porting them into other platforms, in this case WebAssembly. So the building takes a while, so we'll just wait for it. Actually, the samples application is an internal thing that's used by the UNO platform team and the developers working on UNO, and it's not a public application that's available. So if you want to use it and test it, then you will probably have to clone the repo and run it locally. So now let's wait for it to load, and let's go here to Windows UI View Management and full screen mode. As you can see, we have now two different buttons, and when I say enter full screen, it pops up into full screen mode, and exit full screen exits the full screen mode. So it actually works as we expect it to. So okay, so that's for UWP. Now we confirmed the API works as we expect it to work, and we'll switch to WebAssembly. For that, I will close Visual Studio now and go to the cross-targeting override, which is a special file that allows us to choose the platform we are targeting currently, so that we don't have to build for all the platforms which UNO platform supports, and it increases development speed significantly. So now I set .NET Standard for WebAssembly, and I will now launch the WebAssembly specific version of the UNO platform solution. As you can see, it's not a SLN file, it's a SLNF file, and that's a different thing, as it allows you to filter specific projects of an existing solution, which is useful here, as we can just select WebAssembly only projects and not bother with those which are Android or iOS specific. So in the WebAssembly project, we have now the samples app as well, and we can just try to launch it to make sure it works and builds. And it should build and show us that the API is not implemented yet, and it shouldn't work actually. So we'll see if that's the case, and then we will start implementing it. I will show in the meantime the solution structure here, and the interesting thing for WebAssembly is the UNO UI WASM project, which contains the implementation for WebAssembly specific APIs, and that's usually in most cases just TypeScript code, and it's actually structured to match the UWP APIs, at least in most cases. So you can see that, for example, Windows System Profile Analytics version info just matches the class name in UWP. So even though the namespaces are actually matching the UWP implementation. So it's nice because when you browse the code, you know that when you are searching for WebAssembly specific implementation of things, it will be located here in the appropriate namespace. So now it's launching, and we should see the loading screen, splash screen, and then the samples application in the browser. Yeah, it should be happening anytime now. Refresh this. yeah. So here in the samples list, I will select this and full screen mode. And as you can see that this now doesn't do anything. Actually in the debug window we should see errors that this is not implemented. Yeah, system not implemented exception says that the try enter full screen mode is not implemented in UNO platform. So let's implement it now. The first thing we have to do is make sure that the auto-generated code which throws this exception, not implement the exception, is actually not present here. So I will go to Windows, yeah, in the right project. So I will go to Windows, UI View Management, Application View, and here we should find the try enter full screen mode method, which is implemented on Android and iOS. As you can see, this these two, and it's not implemented on WebAssembly, so I will just put here false to make the auto-generated code not apply to WebAssembly. And now we will move to the implementation itself, and I will probably start with WASM, and I will start with the TypeScript code here. So in the view management class, view management folder, I will create a new application view ts file for TypeScript, and I will use basically the same namespace as here. I'll just copy this and paste this here and change this to application view. And in this class, I will create a new public method, public static method, set full screen mode. And this will have a parameter which will say if we want to turn it on or off. So as on or turn on, and it's going to be a boolean. And in this method we will call the appropriate JS API. So I will start by doing it if turn on, if we are supposed to turn it on, we will call the document element request full screen. And in the other case, when we want to turn it off, we call the document exit full screen method. So that should be it. And that's probably for the TypeScript side of things. Now we have to call this API, this function from our C# code, from the UNO platform implementation for WebAssembly. So I will go here into UNO UI view management, and there are many classes, as you can see. For each of the platforms there is a specific file with platform-specific implementations, and there is a shared file for the general implementation of application view. But I will go here into WebAssembly and add the implementation for the two methods we are trying to implement here. So I will just copy the signature of the method here, and same for the other one. So yeah, like this. And now we have to call the the JavaScript API. So I will create a new private constant string for the application view type And that's just a shorthand for me to not have to write it as a string letter all the time. So I will do Windows UI view management, application view, and that's like basically the type with its namespace so that we can call it. And now there is a nice method here, Invoke Gs, which allows us to invoke a JavaScript code from C#, and I will do it simply by, I will first create the command. So the command will be, oh, let's make it differently. Let's do a private void set full screen mode, with which will have the boolean turn on, and for I will call it from here and from there. So from here I will call set full screen mode true, and here I will call set full screen mode to false. And in here I will first create the JS eval string that will contain the application view type, and then we will call the method we defined here, the function, which is set full screen mode. So set full screen mode, and as a argument we have to pass in either true or false. So let's do turn on and put it to string, and let's do lower invariant, so that we have it lowercase, as toString in C# on boolean generates a capitalized version of the truth value, either true with capital T. So we use to lower invariant to put it to lowercase to match JavaScript convention. So now the JS eval is a string we want to execute, and we execute it using this WebAssembly runtime Invoke Gs. So we call this JS eval, and when it's done, it should actually execute our code in JavaScript. I have the red squiggle here that try enter full screen mode actually returns boolean if the transition was successful, but it's so I will just return here true, as the function should not fail, and if it does, we have to add some error handling later. Yeah, so the problem with request full screen is that it's actually returns a promise, which is resolved later, and actually the API in UWP is not asynchronous, so we just have to return immediately, and so I will return true and expect the API to work correctly. So now let's actually test the solution now, as it should be all we need. So let's see. I'll wait for it to launch for a while. In the meantime, I will show you one more thing here, that these methods are actually not completely self-contained as there are other related APIs which are not yet implemented. So I'll probably tackle this one next, so that all the methods which are related to full screen are actually implemented properly. But that's probably for later work. So now the sample step is launching, and we should hopefully see the samples picker, and we browse to view management, full screen mode, and let's hope for the best. Yeah, that's perfect. So full screen mode, enter full screen is working, and exit full screen as well. And we can even click it multiple times, and it works as we expect it to work. And so yeah, that's probably the implementation for WebAssembly. So with that, the new feature is implemented, and we can actually push it into the repo. So we have here the samples. It's fine. We have updated the generated files to not include WebAssembly and implemented the full screen mode ourselves with a constant here. And in the WebAssembly project, we have to make sure that things like this don't actually get checked in, as these are generated by Visual Studio, which doesn't know that this file is actually automatically included by previous definitions, including this. So that's something we will not check in, and we will check in only these two folders which have the implementation of feature, and this is auto-generated JavaScript file, which is the result of all the compilation process. So I will now implement it full, try enter full screen mode and exit full screen mode on WASM. So let's commit this and push it. And yeah, we also need to update the release notes, which are here. So let's do it here, and we say we support for try enter full screen mode and exit full screen mode on WebAssembly. So that's it, and yeah, that would be probably it. So I will commit this change as well. Updated release notes, and right after this we can just create a pull request into the UNO platform repository. So here actually GitHub detected that we updated a branch, and I will do compare pull request and implemented try enter full screen mode and exit. And I already created an issue for this, which is full screen mode on WASM, and I will now fill out the questionnaire. So here it's a new feature. Okay, yeah, so these two APIs are not on WASM, and the new behavior is that it's implemented on WASM. Yeah, and for the PR checklist, we can go and check that we tested the code with current support SDKs. We updated the docs. Actually, we didn't update the docs. It doesn't require any docs. This feature is very small. We added UI tests for it, and it's for WASM as well. And it contains no breaking changes. And we updated the release notes to the latest with the change. And finally, associated with an GitHub issue. Yeah, that would be it. And let's create the pull request. Yeah, then that's it. So now the pull request is created and it's waiting for a review. So hopefully it will be merged soon and Uno platform will support full screen mode very soon. All right, so thank you for tuning in into this first attempt at live streaming, and I will see you next time with a new feature or a new video, and hopefully it's gonna be soon.